Hey, this is Seth with Electrek, and today we've got a special interview with Shell Greenlots COO, Tannaz Banisadre, who came to the company she's been with Shell for over a decade, but came to Greenlots when it was acquired by Shell almost 2 years ago. Obviously, we here at Electrek, we've seen this before. The oil companies aren't necessarily overwhelmingly in favor of EV adoption, and there's been some sabotage in the past. So we wanted to know where Shell stands, and Shell has made other green initiatives, so we're a little bit less paranoid about that. Anyway, let's get right to the. Great. Hi. First of all, nice to meet you. So obviously we're really big into charging networks and the like. I'm just curious, getting bought by Shell, like what is that like from a small private network standpoint?
Yeah, it offers a lot of opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
which is really exciting. You can look at the downsides, you can look at the upsides, but I think the upsides tend to outweigh. And if I talk to a lot of the people who, have been here like since inception, which I haven't, but you see that people look at this and say, okay, well, we went from scrambling for funding all the time, which is,
Mm-hmm.
has its own thing, to having resource, having access, having breadth, and also having the ability to collaborate in a way that you would not necessarily have had before. So, I find that it's been really great. I mean, in terms of what it brings to us and the opportunity it brings to the table.
So in that regard, I'm assuming there's like lots of upgrades coming down the pike. One of the big things I wanted to talk about is the plug and charge standard.
Yeah.
Which EA is kind of working on in the U.S. and there's a bunch in Europe as well. What is that going to look like for you guys? How what's the timetable and all that stuff?
So I mean, if I think about Greenlots specifically, we are 15.11.8 ready. Software
Ready.
perspective,
Mm-hmm.
we are there. We work with our partners to kind of develop that, but it is an ecosystem play.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we have the software that is ready to go and it is 15.11.8 enabled already, we need everyone to be in the same page. So we need the vehicle manufacturers to be there. We need, the charging hardware players to be there. And we are, seeing this come together. Like you said, Electrify America, one of our partners that we work with on this,
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing vehicles like the Taycan come through where we're doing this. We know that most of the vehicle manufacturers are looking at incorporating this into their next generation EVs. So I think it'll be a few more years before we hit critical mass industry wide. But, definitely we are in a position where we are working with our partners to see, how we accelerate that transition. We also, we have an innovation lab in LA and we do a lot of testing out there too, related to 15.11.8 to bring it all together.
Yeah, I'd love to check out the innovation lab. That sounds super cool. So, just to cool. Maybe you can coordinate with a USC football game. I went there. So anyway,
full disclosure.
So we're already thinking about that. So you're on the list. Don't worry.
Okay, cool.
I was LA, so full disclosure on that one.
Yeah, all right. We're not going to talk
go
about
to
battle. But so specifically, like if I had a Porsche Taycan or a Ford Mustang Mach-E or even the Rivian or the upcoming VW ID4, which is going to have a software update,
Mm-hmm.
When could I plug into a Greenlots station and expect to have plug and charge working?
Well, so for example, we provide the software for Electrify America,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you are already plugging into a Greenlots station in a way.
Okay.
So, we don't have as much, we don't have as much of the public facing like Greenlots network. We have a few
Mm-hmm.
of those sites, but a lot of times what we're doing is enabling the networks themselves, the retail sites themselves, et cetera. So we're kind of behind the scenes in that.
Yeah.
So right now, yeah, if everyone else is on that same page, then we can do it.
Okay. So you can do it at an EA station, but like a station that's branded Greenlots, like the ones on the New York State Thruway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think those have that capability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not yet.
And is there a timetable or a rollout plan or?
I mean, a lot of that will do with how, I don't know the exact timetable. I'd have to talk to our head of product to see what he's thinking, but I would imagine a lot of that is related to hardware, like, charging hardware, et cetera, that we would have to get to that point. And also, when is there enough, again, critical mass that becomes or when is that ubiquitous enough from a driver perspective, because I believe, it is a big thing about convenience, but it's also just not available in most instances. I mean, how many people are driving a Mach-E in a Taycan? Not yet, but is that something we will look at for sure?
Yeah, I mean, from our standpoint, and some other entities I've talked to, it's kind of a push or pull. Like, are you going to be pulled into it, or are you going to be the people pushing it? So I hope you're thinking about it in that that way a little bit more. But it was really nice, for instance, to with the Rivian, just to plug it in, and the people at Rivian didn't even know they had plug and charge, like, capable.
Really?
Yeah. So for me, it was like, hey, did you know this is using plug and charge? And they were like, yeah, I'd never heard of it. Don't know what that is, but it's working.
And I think a lot of that will be because also with the charging OEMs, like the charging, hardware providers, we are seeing, again, newer models are coming out that are 1511.8 enabled. But what you're likely not going to see, and this is not specific to us, but just generally, is, people aren't going to rip out functional hardware. It's like anything else, right? You wouldn't throw out a perfectly good car until you had to replace it or there was a reason to replace it, right? So I think as long as, so you have to kind of wait for that cycle to turn as well. And that goes for any industry. And I think that'll be.
So it's a hardware, it's not just a software update. It's like a hardware, you need to put in a reader or whatever.
Yeah, the components have to sit across the board.
The handshaker. Yeah. Okay. So I live in New York. As you probably know, Evolve New York. I think they're a partner with you guys, and building out a state network. How do you guys see that? How do you think about, is that a future thing? Should, California, New York, et cetera, build out their own networks?
So that's an interesting, I mean, I wouldn't be able to comment on who I think should build it. Do I think we need networks? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think we need to get to that point where ultimately, the best way I can think of it is, Field of Dreams, like if you build it, they will come, right? The only way to get to the point where you get people comfortable enough to transition is to create a situation where it's comfortable, right? People are coming from a mindset of what is, that customer experience, what's convenient, what's easy, what is reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think psychologically people are entirely there yet. Plus they are going to need, if you're going a long distance, you need, just like if you want to fuel your car, you need to know you can charge your car. So do we need networks? Yes. Absolutely. And I think we're seeing, just even from, our customer base and everything else and what we're seeing in the market, we're moving in that direction, right? There is increased emphasis on infrastructure because people now realize that we need it, which is fantastic. Who is the best place to build that infrastructure? It's really hard to say for me. I mean, I couldn't give you an answer on that.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good question because I don't know that New York State has all the experience that they need to keep those networks running, and I don't know if they know what they're getting themselves into. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, it might even be different state to state, right? Because everyone has different rules, laws, experience, priorities. So
aspirations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so back to so initially I kind of thought of Shell and Greenlots as kind of like, all right, well, this is going to sort of replace the gas station, but it's really like that's not a one-for-one kind of change. How do you think about that? Like, are you guys thinking about the convenience store aspect of the gas station or the other? How does that work for you guys?
I mean, we look at it across the, like, holistically, right? I mean, people are going to want to charge at every aspect. They need to charge at home. They want to be able to charge at work. They might want to charge at Target or Whole Foods or Costco or wherever it happens to be. They might also just be on a freeway and need to charge somewhere and go to the bathroom. And therefore that's where, that's, your prime real estate in terms of gas stations, although really like gas station bathrooms, but that's a different story. But, but the idea is, I don't think that there is like you said, it's not a one-to-one, and I don't think it's an either or. I think it's an and. So I think you need to look at all of those. If I consider the broader Shell strategy, it really is looking at all of those. We do residential charging in a lot of instances, and right now in Europe, that's one of our strengths in Europe, and it's something we're looking at, elsewhere. So residential charging, yes. How do we do that? We look at on the go. We have we serve 30 million customers a day through our global retail, global kind of gas station network, which is an insane number if you think about it. It's one of the largest retailers in the world. The footprint that comes with that, the access that comes with that, that's kind of inherited is fantastic. And because that network has been developed so much based on where you have footfall, where you have traffic, where people are coming and going, they're already well placed, geographically. So that is something that you would look at. And then it goes back to, but also what's the customer experience? What's that convenience like? And the convenient option is also that you do want to do it at some sort of destination, at some sort of retailer, at a mall, at, whatever it is. And so for us, I don't think we eliminate any. We look at what does the customer require and how do we best address that? Now, does that mean that everything is going to exist forever? Who knows? It's the industry changes so fast that it's really interesting to see also how customer expectations change. But we try to keep pace with that and use that to drive what we do and how we do it.
So one of the hardest areas of EV drivers to solve in terms of charging is the folks that live in a city. They have street parking, or maybe they have parking in a garage that doesn't have EV chargers. How are you guys? What's that?
That's me.
Okay. How do you guys solve for that? Do you put in street chargers that are slow? Do you have ultra fast chargers like gas stations that are currently in use? How do you guys think about that?
Combination. So Shell as a whole, so not Greenlots specifically, Shell as a whole acquired a company named Electricity, which does lamppost charging, right? So that's your on-street lamppost. It's slow. I think it's mainly L2, but it's one option, right? And that is for basically places like London where it's compact and, like you say, there's no real opportunity. If I look around my street in San Francisco, there's not a lot of lampposts. Not in the same, not in the same way. I don't think you could get much of that going on. So that's one option. We look at exactly what you say. How do we give customers an opportunity to get in and out without it being a hassle? How can I go charge my car for 20 minutes and come home? So that's where your ultra fast charging comes in, and that could be at a variety of locations. We also talk to different players in the market to see what they're doing and see how we can partner and enable them. So, for example, there's a company called Envoy. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They're based out of LA. And we've partnered with them to be their software provider. They work a lot to make charging almost an amenity for, let's say, condos and buildings where, you can't have a charger at your parking spot or in your garage. So they look at also, creative ways to do this. So I think we use a lot of lateral thinking to see how do we best tackle this depending on your location and what the actual friction or challenge is at hand. Because also a solution that works in London doesn't necessarily work in San Francisco, doesn't necessarily work in New York, and that we have different options based on where we're at.
Okay. So one thing that's kind of interesting that's, obviously peak demand, super peak demand makes car charging a lot more expensive. If you can kind of taper that or, shift that with batteries and solar, that reduces costs quite a bit. How are you guys thinking about that? Are you guys working on solar or battery technology at all?
So we do a lot with the energy management side of things because I'm completely with you. The combination of batteries with solar, it provides such an opportunity, for the charging industry. You look at it reduces installation costs, it reduces operation costs, it addresses grid constraints, grid reliability, smooths out kind of the variations that we see in the power load. So, we have, so we as Greenlots have energy management software that we work with. And then we work with a variety of other providers to implement that on site to get to a point where we can combine all these factors to give you that. So again, I'll mention our lab, which you will come see. But, in that lab, we've done a lot of testing on this, and we've now started piloting at different locations. So we have, and every time we do a pilot, we step it up a notch. So, in the Netherlands, we work with Shell Retail on one of their forecourts or gas stations, and, with our European charging colleagues, NewMotion, and we have basically, it's a site that does ultra fast charging, and we didn't do any grid upgrades. And instead, what we've done is use battery energy storage systems. We use our energy management technology, and we bring all that together. Now, the next one we're doing, which will go live in 2022, is in Singapore, where we're working with their energy management or energy market authority to basically do something similar, but with on-site solar PV. And so we're integrating all that, and that's going to get rolled out as a pilot on 3 Shell stations, and it's really commissioned by the Singaporean government as a recognition for them that this is something that we have to deal with. You know, me in California, you know, rolling blackouts are a thing. Like it's not going away anytime soon. So, you know, you don't want that to define your charging experience. You want that continuity of experience to be guaranteed, even if, you know, we have to black out because of a fire or because the heat is too high or whatever happens to be going on at the time. So, you know, sorry, I know I'm going on a bit of ramble. This is something I have like a lot of energy for, but you know, there's so much opportunity in being able to address this because there are so many sites where the grid just can't be upgraded or it's so prohibitive from a cost perspective. There are so many places where, you know, the issue with moving to a renewable energy source, you know, is the grid reliability and the fact that, you know, what happens at night if you're solar. The battery energy storage system, the energy management software, these are the things that enable us to do that. And so when you look at like the doors that it opens and what it can help us do, it's really fantastic. So it's something we do put energy and focus on. It's something that I think is incredibly important. And so we will continue to work through that. But I think, you know, like you said, there's so much potential here in terms of what we can do. And I think we're still very nascent in
Absolutely. So in Germany, I think there's been some recent legislation passed where every gas station must have a charger of some sort. I don't think it particularly makes a lot of sense to have a level 2 charger at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. So they didn't really think that one through terribly well.
They didn't specify, at least. Yeah, they gave
right. And hopefully the gas stations, you know, aren't just trying to, you know, check box. They're thinking about their possible customers. But are you guys looking to lobby local, state, national governments to kind of get the ball rolling there in terms of, you know, not necessarily making them compulsory, but like, you know, just getting them out there in any way, shape, or form?
So we work a lot. So, you know, kind of going back to what I was saying of if you build it, it will come, they will come. You know, we do a lot in terms of any incentivization really needs to be both supply and demand side. And until now, you know, what we've seen a lot of is demand side incentivization, right? So you get a rebate if you buy a Tesla, you know, that kind of thing. But the supply side is really only starting to get a little traction, I feel. And that's something that absolutely we work with. Now, what form does that take? You know, is it mandating it on a gas station site? I don't know. I'm not sure that's necessarily the right way. You know, it might be in some markets. And again, if it's written in a way that doesn't give you a lot of loopholes and actually really doesn't improve the customer experience. But do we need something like that? And do we need incentivization in that form? Yes, we do. Do we need that supply side addressed? Because, you know, you have a chicken and egg situation where you have a lot of people who, because the industry is growing, you know, the utilization is not where you would need it to be to make something like this economically viable. On the other hand, until you build it, no one's going to buy the cars to make it economically viable because of all the range anxiety and all the other concerns that come up.
Right.
So you need help to get that ball moving, and that help has to come from both sides.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we'll end with one kind of final question and a caveat. Like, are you an electric vehicle driver? Are you in the game?
I am working with my HOA to get in the game because I cannot find a solution. However, at my parents' house, let's say I am, because we were one of the first in the Central Valley of California where I grew up. My dad was the first person to buy an electric vehicle. So we've had a Tesla in the house or a form of electric vehicle for, I think it was since the first Model S.
Oh, wow. Like almost a decade now.
Almost a decade now. And we had to call in an electrician from the Bay Area because no one in the Central Valley of California knew how to upgrade the electricity in the garage to be able to charge the car. So we actually had to import the electrician to get us there. So I personally, at this moment, do not. I'm working on it. I'm literally in a debate with my HOA right now. But and I'm trying to, and going back to the lateral thinking, I'm like, but I have solutions for you. Can you let me like introduce
I
them?
know it
And
becomes hard at points.
it becomes hard, but historically I have been. So.
Great. And then so one like tell us about what you guys are thinking about next year or two. What kind of surprises or lateral moves or what kind of stuff that we're going to hear about? Obviously
Like,
without
what am
breaking
I
in
allowed to
embargoes.
talk about? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
What am I allowed to talk about? Yeah,
general.
I think what you're going to see is you're going to see an acceleration of some of the stuff we're already talking about. So things like the energy management, right? So you're going to see us moving more into that space. You're going to see a lot more noise around that because it's something we recognize is important. Now, again, it's a chicken and egg in terms of the market traction but the hope is that the more we demonstrate the value of this and the potential of this, that you create more of a pull for it as well. I think you're going to see us more heavily working with fleets, which is not very surprising. I think what's the latest projection I saw is 107 million fleets in EV fleets by 2030, which is an insane market projection versus like the passenger vehicle version.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll work a lot more with that, and we'll look at expanding the infrastructure that deals with that. We'll look more, and we'll be working more with high-powered charging. So if I think now, like you were saying, a lot of what we do across the board is L2, and we want to make it, start progressing to the next level because I think that is going to be the market's becoming mature enough for that. Mm-hmm. Basic things rolling out, basic reliability, availability, roaming, which we just rolled out our roaming network, but how do we expand on that? How do we make the driver experience that much better every step of the way? Plug and charge will be a part of that too, obviously. Mm-hmm. And ideally just expansion. Like we want to, we have as Shell a target of 500,000 charge points by 2025.
Oh, wow. That's quite a few. 500,000.
Globally.
That's globally, right?
Globally. Okay. But it's a large number, and we got to get there. Yep. So we're on it. We have big ambitions, but in the best way, right? Because again, if you can get to that point, guess what? More people drive.
Yep.
So that's how you change the world.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tannaz. I appreciate it. And us at Electrek, we're on board. So
I appreciate it. And by the way, I have to say, I love the commentary you put in your articles, like the little sidebars.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that interview. We had a great time. Hope you learned something. Hope it was slightly entertaining. If you did, subscribe, like, bell, everything. We'll see you next time. Thanks.